Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Hopefully there are no technical difficulties today, and I'm actually going to pull up the live chat. I do see you guys. So I see Fairy Girl, welcome to the chat. I see Cherry's Jubilee, hello. And then I also had another person at the very beginning. So hopefully they're going to sign back on. I'm so sorry I am late tonight. So I had to reschedule my chat. I actually wanted to do this chat earlier today at like 8:45, or earlier this evening I should say, and I got so overwhelmed with clients today and new incoming patients that I have, or clients I probably should say, that I just couldn't do all of that without pushing this back to 9 o'clock. So my goal is to be done with this chat at 9:30 p.m. so we can all go to bed at a reasonable time. Welcome, Dragon Man Sassin. Glad to see you. Happy Wednesday. I don't know about you, but when Wednesday hits, I'm like, I just want to go home. I don't want to go home and work out. I don't want to go to the gym. I just want to eat and go to bed. It's that hump day. So thank you so much for wishing us a happy Wednesday. Okay, so today's video, which I'm going to get into, today's video topic is about what's wrong with my family. I'm sure you guys have had that kind of thought pattern in your own world. Sometimes our family members do some pretty interesting things, and it's hard to place them. It's hard to figure out, is this a mental illness? Is this a personality disorder? Or is this simply a family dynamic that has absolutely nothing to do with a mental health issue? So I'm going to be deciphering that for you today and differentiating between mental illness, personality disorder, and just a pretty dysfunctional family dynamic. Now, yesterday, I think it was Tuesday. Yeah, yesterday was Tuesday. And I did a video on the 18-year-old young man who had drove, I think he drove 4 to 8 hours, I heard and read, to go to a town that's predominantly African American or predominantly Black, and harm. And he planned it. And then he also planned a second attack. So I'm hearing from some of my friends who are involved in the case at the legal level. And so in that particular video that I did, it was like an impromptu, here's my thoughts and feelings about it. And I gave you some ideas on what I thought was wrong in that situation and why racism exists and what's the issue with people who hold racist views. In that video, I deliberately left out the family piece, but I think it's important for us when we're trying to understand, is this a mental illness that's creating this behavior, dysfunctional behavior, or is this a personality disorder? Is this a psychopath, a sociopath, a narcissist? Or, is this a family dynamic? It's a set of behaviors that just has become normal or common in a family. And so even for this young man, he is just so quote unquote sick in terms of how he thinks and behaves. And part of that probably stems from the family unit. So, that video was pretty intense, but I meant to highlight that it could be family dynamic and not so much personality disorder or mental illness. So for tonight, I'm going to highlight what I mean by those three things. Now, before I jump into this, I see you guys in the chat. Hello, George. Welcome. Hi, John. Welcome. Oh, good to have you from the UK. I love the UK. Let me just say before I jump into this video that I did a lot of interviews written in magazines and in video format, and also over the radio in the UK. And that was like my first big exposure to a broad audience. And you guys welcomed me, and I love the UK. I think I would move there before I moved to Canada, for sure. Okay, so let's jump into this, okay, guys? So let me define a few things for you. So let's define mental illness. What is that? Well, a mental illness is basically biological or genetic and environmental. So those two pieces is biological, genetic, or environmental, meaning that you can be born with a certain predisposition or biological marker that kind of sets the stage for the development of depression and anxiety and schizophrenia and post-traumatic stress disorder and other conditions like intermittent explosive disorder, there's a genetic and an environmental piece. Now, the environmental piece of mental illness is this, that if you have a genetic marker for depression or anxiety or some kind of predisposition to depression, you have a whole history, family history of depression. Let's say your environment is also unstable. Your parents are drug abusers, substance abusers, mom's a prostitute, dad's a pimp or a thug or whatever you want to call it. Dad is a womanizer. That's a better way, in my mind, to put it. I went to a really bad school. I was bullied from age 7 to 15. My dad was murdered right in front of me, or, my family had a lot of post traumatic stress. That's the environmental piece of mental illness. And what it does is when environment and genes and biology come together, when they collide, I did a video on that. I'll post it in the description box after this live chat. When those things collide, it's really it's a bad explosion, right? Because you've got the genes, it already sets the stage, and then on top of that, you've got the environment that's making it really hard. And so that is what causes a mental illness. Now, a mental illness can be treated. It can be treated. It may not be treated right away. It may be hard to find the right treatment, and you may begin to feel discouraged, right? That, okay, this is not going to get any better. But it can be treated. It is treatable. That's a mental illness. And also consider a mental illness is something that causes the person distress. It keeps the person who's experiencing the mental illness stuck, and sometimes they feel trapped themselves. And that's totally different from a personality disorder. I see that, someone here just offered a huge contribution. Thank you so much, George. That's so, so sweet of you. And I'm so grateful. He says, coffee, but I love it. Thank you so much. It says, Tamara, thank you for your hard work. Thank you so much, George. That's so sweet of you. And also, thank you, Cheers Jubilee. Love the hearts. Thank you, Fairy Girl. You guys are wonderful, as well as you, John. Thank you so much. You guys are so, so sweet. And I really do feel like this is a community. So that's why I put so much energy into it. So just want you to know that. So let's talk about personality disorder. How is that different from a mental illness? Well, a personality disorder is a deeply ingrained pattern of behavior. It's almost like a tattoo. Okay, think of a personality disorder as a tattoo. And it's ingrained, right? It's been written upon your skin in such a way that you can't wash it off. You can't put soap on it. You have to go get laser treatments, and not just one, not just two, not just three, but you have to go get maybe 20 laser treatments before the tattoo is completely gone. And that is really the closest analogy that I can give you to a personality disorder. It's something that's deeply ingrained. It's not easy to get rid of. It's like trying to do therapy with someone who is authentically and naturally hilarious. You've seen people like that. You probably, maybe you're, that kind of a person, or maybe you have somebody like that in your family. They're just hilarious. My brother is like that. Everything he says, he's just hilarious, right? I just chuckle every time he opens his mouth. And we can't erase that from him. That's just who he is. And so a personality disorder is the same way, guys. It's written upon the genetic code and the biology and the genes of the individual, and you can't get rid of it. Now, a personality disorder does not cause distress necessarily to the individual experiencing it, unless it's a cluster B. And really, I'm carving out only two cluster B personality disorders. The one that I'm thinking of is borderline personality disorder. That causes huge distress to the sufferer because there's a lot of up and down emotions. There's a lot of splitting. So splitting off from reality sometimes. There's dissociation. And splitting is also defined as seeing a person in black and white, right? So you're not seeing the whole person. You're seeing them as either all bad or all good. And that is not a pair of glasses that you willingly put on. It's what happens. It's like a lens that automatically goes on your face, and you perceive that person through that lens. And that can cause a lot of distress in your work, in your personal relationships, your marriage, the list goes on, even with your therapist. It's rocky with people that I have that have borderline personality disorder that's poorly treated and untreated. It's difficult. The other cluster B that I'm thinking about that causes distress to the sufferer is avoidant personality disorder. You want that relationship, but you don't know how to make it work. You just want to avoid. And that's the only thing that you've kind of learned to do. But you do want the connection. You just don't know how to back out of avoidance. And so that causes distress to the individual. All the other personality disorders, and I will list them in the description box below. I'm thinking paranoid personality disorder. That's really hard to change. The person is just naturally and authentically paranoid to the point of really needing treatment. It's far beyond just those of us who are a little paranoid. I'm also thinking of narcissism and antisocial personality disorder, sociopaths, psychopaths. Those are personality disorders that just can't be rectified. They can't be fixed. There's also dependent personality disorder. I'll put that in the description box for you also so you can see my video on it. Obsessive compulsive personality disorder. Think of OCD as a lifetime condition, not OCD that can go away with meds, but OCD times 100 without meds. Okay, that is obsessive compulsive personality disorder. It's an obsessive, controlling, constantly running mindset and set of behaviors that just keeps you stuck in a cycle of needing control and organization. And so those personality disorders cannot necessarily be treated with just therapy or just medication. It's going to take a series of treatments. Sociopaths, psychopaths, narcissists, forget it. We're not going to be able to get anywhere with them in terms of therapy unless they are ordered, court ordered to go to therapy, or their marriage is going to end and it's going to make them look bad in the community. There's always some internal motivation for treatment for narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths. Let me get to the comment section and I'm going to continue. I want to define family roles because this is where I think you guys are going to be able to completely relate. John Park says, I can completely resonate with this. I was originally brought up in Glasgow, Scotland, which was a very rough city. Yeah, absolutely. The UK is just special. I love it there. I really do. I haven't been to the UK, but I've had a lot of connections and a lot of social media connections and just relationships over, the internet. So, and I have professional relationships there. Some colleagues and some of my best colleagues and researchers that I work with are in the UK, and it's wonderful. I love every last one of them. I do. Yeah, thank you, Fairy Girl. She says, reduce suffering. Respect, George. Yeah, I agree. My best friend is from Glasgow. Oh, welcome to the channel. Oh, gee, I'm going to mess this up. Please don't take it personal. If you see my lives, I mess up everything. It's just who I am. I don't know why. Don Elisa Edwards, welcome. I don't remember seeing you, so welcome. Thank you, George. John says, Glasgow has improved a lot. Yep, it has. I agree. So they're just chatting about, places that they've been and lived. Okay, so George says, he asked the question, can you be emotional, intelligent, and have a personality? Yeah, can you be emotionally intelligent and have a personality disorder? I want to believe personality and mental illness is two different things. Well, George, that's a fantastic question. So oh God, my camera is literally going to die if I don't get my charger. Let me grab my charger. I don't want to lose you. So I'm plugging in my charger. I will be back. Okay, so George says, can you be emotionally intelligent and have a personality disorder? I say absolutely yes. And here's why. I don't think you're emotionally intelligent in the sense that you know how to show empathy, you know how to feel others' pain, you know how to communicate in a way where others feel that you are present. But I think a narcissist, a sociopath, a psychopath can be emotionally intelligent in the sense that they know what you want and they know what you need. And so they use that to their advantage and to your disadvantage, So can they be emotionally intelligent? Absolutely, to get what they want, to manipulate, to triangulate, to get over on you. But in terms of relating and being empathic, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think I had one psychopath in my whole 14 years, going on 15 years of experience as a therapist. I had one psychopath, and he was a father, and this was over 8 years ago, and he killed animals in his backyard. He hunted for animals because he liked to see them bleed. There was another thing he did that was really weird. Every time the family would get a pet, like a dog, a bird, a fish, it would end up dead. And after mom and dad separated and divorced, it came out in a therapy session that he was killing all the family pets. So he was a complete psychopath, but he knew exactly what she needed as his, soon to be wife when they first met. He knew how to be emotionally intelligent to win her over, and then became really weird and really inappropriate in their marriage. To be very honest, she wanted to divorce as soon as the honeymoon. That's when you know you're married to a psychopath. So yes, George, I hope I answered that question for you. Okay, John says, my family has a lot of these traits, hence why I keep my distance. Absolutely. Sometimes you have to make that decision. I have a video on my channel that is labeled or titled Learning to Be Okay with Being Alone in Your Family. And it's really pushing yourself away from the table and saying, you know what, this is not my kind of feast. I don't want to deal with this. We've got untreated mental illness. We've got intergenerational trauma. We've got manipulation and triangulation. And yet, I still can't connect with you. Like, none of that helps us relate to each other in a way that we can love each other. It's like we're opposites. So push away from the table. You don't have to deal with that. Cherry's Jubilee says, OCPD is why I am getting the brain scan. Oh, I didn't know that, Cherry's Jubilee. I'm not sure that can show up on a brain scan, but I would definitely mention it to whoever's your psychiatrist, your therapist, your primary care physician. Just say, hey, is there an assessment I can take that can help me rule out obsessive compulsive personality disorder? And you should be able to get that. No problem at all. Fairy Girl says, Okay, I'm just trying to follow. Hi, Larisa Miranda. Hopefully I have that correct. Welcome to the chat. John says, thanks, Tamara. It has so much history and beautiful architecture. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm sure it does. Absolutely. I think Cherry's Jubilee had a question for me. Hold on. I'm going to go back. Okay, Cherry's Jubilee says, she says, okay, so my mom is a narcissist, no question, but could my high work ethic grandfather that made her so bad, he was okay, I should sit closer, put my glasses on. He was an Oklahoma farm during the Dust Bowl and moved to the West Coast during the Great Depression, and a teacher in LA in the Watt riot. He was all about the hard work, and my mom is lazy. So I'm trying to find. Is that a question in there, Cherry's Jubilee? I hope I'm not missing it. So, okay, I'm going to pull from this. And I think what you're saying to me, you're asking me if his workaholic ways, correct me if I'm wrong, please, if his workaholic ways, excuse me, is what has made your mom lazy, in your words, or has created a situation where she doesn't want to put herself to work or do anything that is work related. Absolutely. When you have a workaholic in the family, the last thing the next family member wants to do is follow in those footsteps. And so maybe, if not intentionally, unintentionally, your mom was like, no, I don't want that lifestyle. It was harmful to me. I'm not doing anything. I hope I answered that question. My answer is yes. All right. Yes, you're welcome, Donna Lisa. You're welcome. Hello, Thomas. Welcome to the chat. Oh, that's so sweet of you, Fairy Girl. Thank you for encouraging everybody in the chat. I see you doing that all the time. I feel like you are the mother in a sense of the community, and Cherry Girl, you're like right behind her. You're like the aunt or the cousin or something. Tell me what you think of that idea. Okay. All right. So Thomas says it has been difficult to build new relationships after disconnecting from toxic friends and family. Yeah. And I'm not sure why. Like, give me some feedback on that because I will address this. I think sometimes our mind gets tired because we can't juggle everything that is going on around us, you know? And then once you push away from the table and say, you know what, I don't want this kind of feast with you, I don't want this kind of family relationship or this friendship, I think in some ways we shut down. And so then we're not willing or ready to reach back out and maybe be hurt again, maybe be, treated badly, manipulated, triangulated, all of that, you know? So that might be part of the issue for you as well. It was for me 15 years ago when I said to my extended family members on my dad's side, we're not doing this. I'm done. I'm done. And then I shut down for the next 10 years and went to grad school, and I still didn't connect with outsiders. I had enough. All right, let's get back to this. Okay, guys. So we talked about mental illness. We talked about personality disorders. Let's talk about family dynamics. And then I'm going to try my best to wrap up. Family dynamics. So here's what's going on there. Family dynamics are basically patterns of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that a family has developed over time. And it really is the unspoken language of the family. A family dynamic is a pattern and it occurs for many, many years over time. It's a cycle of being, it's a cycle of thinking, a cycle of feeling. And so family dynamics can range right from mild to moderate to severe. Personally, I'll share some self-disclosure. I think my family dynamic is definitely moderate in terms of dysfunction on my father's side. There's poor communication. There's prejudice and discrimination. There is lack of knowledge of one's race and culture. There's lack of knowledge of how to be a good parent. Like, there's a lot of stuff on my dad's side of the family that could really be worked on. And even on my mother's side, extended family, there's some things that need to be worked on there. So on a scale from mild to severe, I would say my family's moderate, which is like a 5 out of a 10. And it ranges in that way, and there's labels that can go along that spectrum as well. And so I'm going to mention them now. So the first thing that you're probably going to see in your family as a family dynamic is the hero or the rescuer. Now, this kind of a family person, guys, let me know in the chat box below if you have a family member like this. This person is always swooping in to save the day, and they're always there to support and love and give. And they may actually be the most successful person in the family, a mom, a really successful brother or sister who owns a business, an attorney, a judge. So the rescuer is always there to swoop in and rescue. And sometimes they play the mediator. Now, there's also the lost child. And that's the family member who is often the younger one or the middle child, usually the baby of the family. And, this lost child is confused. They don't quite know who they are or what they want or what they want to be. They're kind of quiet and they isolate and they withdraw. They don't want to be a part of the family drama. It's too much for them, This kind of a person, the lost child in the family, is likely to suffer from depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts and not like speak a word of it to family members. They're quiet. You also have the scapegoat. We all know what the scapegoat is. You are the one who's targeted, although the real issue is the whole unit, not just you. There's the triangulator, and that's the family member who goes around the family gossiping and saying things and creating triangles. Let's say, for example, you have a sibling, your brother, your sister, and they find out that you're going to elope and get married. Well, your brother, your sister goes to your parents and says, did you know Karen was going to elope? Can you believe she's doing that? And what's going to happen? Mom and dad's going to come to you and ask you, why are you trying to elope? Don't you want us all to be involved? And so there's the triangle. It's the parents, you, and your sister, and there's many examples on my channel. If you go back and watch some of the videos where I talk about this. There's also the pathological liar in the family. This is the person who's compulsive in their lying, right? It's automatic. There's no real gain. It happens all the time. They lie about quote unquote stupid stuff, which is what one of my families says all the time. She lies about stupid stuff. And they don't seem to understand that if you tell the truth, you're going to be better off than if you were to lie. They just lie over and over and over, and it creates triangulation. It creates bad relationships. It creates that very bad and poor family dynamic, and it's not easy for the pathological liar to get out of. It's like a habit, or an addiction. There's also the family mascot. That's the family member who thinks everything is funny, everything's a joke. And there's also the achiever. And that's the one who does, beyond what they need to do to make it and do well. So there's the family roles, guys. And all these family roles can exist in one family, and it creates that family dynamic. So how in the world does this cause family trauma? I'm going to get to that. Let me just go ahead and look at some of the comments, and then we will wrap up, and I will see you guys next video. Hi, Gypsy Julie. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. Yeah, you're welcome, Thomas. I see where you're saying thank you. Absolutely. Hi, I think it's Mossy100. They're asking me a question. Is it a manipulation attempt when you separate yourself from an emotional abusive narcissist, but they try to portray that your separation from them is cruel? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're married to a narcissist, the last thing they want to do is look like the victim, right? Because they want to rise above. They don't want to be subordinate or, minimized. They want to be huge and big and important. So in order to avoid looking like they are less than, they may twist things and say, you know what? It's because of her that we're separating, or she's the one that ruined the marriage, or she's the one who decided to separate. I wanted the marriage. I was dedicated. That's what they're likely to do. So yeah, it's definitely a manipulation tactic for sure. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going through some of these. Okay, Cheers Jubilee says OCPD, obsessive compulsive personality disorder, and autism have so many crossover symptoms. I hope the 4-hour psych test will help me get the answers. Yeah. So, Cherry Jubilee, when you go for your psych appointment, if it's going to be 4 hours, here's how it's probably going to be broken down: getting some history, talking to you about your symptoms, doing a brain scan, scheduling a time for you to get back to the office so you can talk about all the results. And then you're probably going to get a paper assessment or like a evaluation that you can kind of flip through and read and Google some terms. So I hope it's helpful if I mention that. Okay, so Fairy Girl says, I think I mainly suffer because of hypervigilance since utero near bout. I also rescued a lot. I try to stop if I notice me doing it. Yeah, so Fairy Girl, you've mentioned this in previous videos that you do kind of rescue, right? That's kind of your character, I think. And it's my character too. I want to rescue and make sure everybody's okay. But I think families can kind of cause you to really attach to that identity, that it's hard for you to break away from that identity. I am the rescuer in my family, and although my older brother is 10 years older than me, so I'm 36, he's 46. And although he's big brother, I'm big sister in a sense, because I'm the girl, and we kind of have, women, we kind of have a little bit more noodles up at the top sometimes, and we know how to juggle things. We're just awesome. Women are great. That's not a sexist comment. I don't want to make it sound like that, but women do multitask. And so in a sense, when I can't be in that role, like I told you guys in my last live where I had COVID and then celiac and I was sick for months, I couldn't step out of that rescue role. I saw my brother still needing me, my mom, who's awesome, but she needs me at times, my clients. So it was like I couldn't step out of that role. So Fairy Girl, when you have that role, you kind of get cemented to that, and it's hard to get out. It really is. John says, yes, I used to be the rescuer, but I had to step back and focus on my own healing in order to stop enabling their toxic behaviors. That's a superb comment. I totally agree. And sometimes you do have to say, you know what? I'm closing the door on this role that I've played for so many years because it is not healthy to me. And so step out of that role, and your family has to learn to kind of recalibrate, find some new equilibrium for, is another way for me to say that. Find a better foundation without you playing in that role. So it's going to take time. It is. Fairy Girl says many of us have and or switched hats and roles. Yeah, all the time. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Uh, let's see here. Gypsy Julie says, I tend to be too agreeable. Yeah, me too. Me too. However, and I'm not sure how old you are, Gypsy Julie, but if you're still in your 20s, you're probably going to be that way. And here's an example that may help you a little bit. My late adolescence all the way to age 26, I was a people pleaser, and by 27 I was like, that's out the window. I don't want to be a people pleaser. I'm burdened, I'm tired, I can't be me. It takes too much energy. And so then I switched. By the time I hit 30, it was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. So Gypsy Julie, you may get to a certain age where you finally realize, okay, this is not okay. I'm not going to agree to everything. You might switch if you haven't already. John says, so true. Women tend to be the nurturers and caretakers. Thank you, John. I'm so glad you guys didn't take that as a sexist comment. That's not the way I meant it. So thank you. All right, so let me get to the family trauma. You ready? Because we're going to wrap up in a little bit. So the family trauma that can happen if you have, let's say, mental illness, personality disorders, and bad family dynamics in the same family. That's like a tornado, right? So how does it impact you? Well, I think the first thing we need to look at is poor communication or no communication at all. When you have a family that has three of these things involved: poor family dynamics, personality disorders, and mental illness, it's really easy for communication to get lost, for the simple fact that if you have somebody in the family who is suffering from schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, they're up and down, right? They have mood fluctuations and changes. They have perceptual changes. I just did a video on that. I'm going to post that in the description box for you guys. So you can go back and look at that. But they see things or perceive things differently. And so it's hard to communicate with someone who's paranoid. It's hard to communicate with a sociopath. It's hard to communicate with a narcissist in the family. And it's also even more difficult to communicate with someone who may be experiencing psychosis, like seeing and hearing things. Top that off with family dynamics and you just get a big tornado. And so communication is really poor or doesn't exist at all. The next thing is abuse, neglect, and PTSD. I mean, that's likely to happen. Let's say you grew up in a household with a mother or a father that has schizophrenia and you're suffering from delusions, and they are suffering from delusions and hallucinations, and you have watched that parent be hospitalized, medicated. You've watched them hallucinating. I professionally have seen an active psychotic state in a patient and a client. And let me tell you, sometimes it is frightening. You can't figure out if that individual is here or not. And I once had a client, and I didn't know that she had schizophrenia, that she was formally diagnosed. And so I took her under the assumption that she had bipolar disorder. She lied. She did not want me to prejudge her. So she lied and said I have bipolar when it was really schizophrenia. So she was in an active psychotic state right in my office. And let's just say that active psychotic state ended in an ambulance, a 302. I had to hospitalize her against her will, and police, right? Police had to escort the paramedics to the hospital. And that's how psychotic she was, or disturbed in the moment. And so if you grow up under that and seeing that, that can cause post-traumatic stress disorder. It can also cause complex PTSD or chronic PTSD. And of course, abuse. If you have a narcissist in the family, sociopath, The list goes on. And of course, poor family dynamics can lead to all of that, you know? The next thing is a loss of identity. You're living under somebody like this, or you've been raised under somebody like that. It's really easy to lose who you are. For example, I have a parent that has bipolar disorder, or schizophrenia, or it's a narcissist. You're gonna get lost in the shuffle of life with that particular parent or family member. Because they're constantly cycling and going through things and having challenges and problems. And so it's going to impact you and affect you in some way. I'm going to say fear and uncertainty. You've been raised under this, you've experienced it. Fear and uncertainty is really inevitable when you have a family that's complex like this. PTSD, we talked about, and I'm going to say fluid and sometimes rigid boundaries. So fluid boundaries is kind of like water. It changes, it goes all kind of ways, it moves. That boundary is not firmly held. But then you can also have a family, or you could personally experience rigid boundaries where you lock everybody out, you shut the door, you don't want to talk, you don't want to go to therapy, you don't want to process, you don't want to take medication, you just want the world to leave you alone. So that's a rigid boundary. Now, let me go back to fluid boundaries, because that could mean in your life, if you are struggling with a family like this, that could mean really being too agreeable, as we talked about at Gypsy Julie, being too agreeable and too flexible, not having boundaries. Fluid boundaries could also mean dating multiple people at the same time or throughout a certain period of time. Fluid boundaries can also mean that you allow people to run over you. And so that's the result of family trauma. Having a family with mental illness, personality disorders, and poor family dynamics is complete family trauma, because it's chaotic, to say the least. Now, on Sunday, I hope you guys will be back. I'm going to be talking about the traumatic impact of religion and how that impacts you within the family. I'm not just talking about religion, right? I'm really trying to get at, in Sunday's topic, how religious family trauma can impact you. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to go ahead to the comment section and we're going to wrap up. Okay. I love what Cherry's Jubilee says here. She says, letting go of Facebook was a godsend. I'm sure I don't have a Facebook. I have a business page. That's about it. I'm going to say, Cherry's Jubilee, Facebook is a complete nightmare. Everybody finds you. Everybody knows you. Like, no. Excuse me. Okay, so She McGee, welcome to the chat. She asked me a question, or maybe she doesn't. She makes a statement, she or he. That question is why I took psychology in high school and twice in college. It took me until I was 50 to realize it was narcissistic personality disorder and or psychopathy in my family. Yeah, absolutely. I think for most people, they go into psychology to get the knowledge, because family is interesting, and that's why we have so many busy family therapists. I'm one of them. I rarely have time to breathe, and that's because there's so many negative family dynamics, especially after COVID. And family dynamics they are difficult, to say the least. Cherry's Jubilee says, hard to discuss trauma and family issues without the S word. Yeah, I've heard that before in my office. All right, so let me keep going. Fairy Girl says, can say S word from now on. Oh, I understand. There's quite a few that ended their own timeline in my family 3 years ago. Yeah. So the word, I hear this a lot in my office. It's the S word is suicide. I think there's a lot of people who are struggling with thoughts of suicide when they have families like this. And let me just tell you, it is not abnormal to have suicidal thoughts. And if you are someone who has had a therapist or someone say, why are you suicidal? You're probably looking at me now like, what the heck did she just say? It is normal to have suicidal thoughts. Hear it from me. I'm validating you if you have them, because life is hard. Trauma is hard. Mental illness is hard. Personality disorders are hard. Family dynamics are hard. And suicide is often the only way some people either get recognition of their pain or they feel that they can escape it. And so when someone comes into my office and they're suicidal, the first thing I say is, okay, that's fine. Let's talk about it. What I don't want is to normalize it so much that the person says, says, you know what, I'm going to go do it. So that's where I tried to make sure that I put up that structure and boundary. But overall, it's okay to have suicidal thoughts. It is normal, but you don't want to act on them because I think there's life for you. So kind of working with those thoughts, and figuring out what you want and do not want is important. But having suicidal thoughts because of a family like this is absolutely normal. Absolutely normal. Absolutely. Okay, so I hope I have that right. Tell me if I'm missing the S word, because my S word in my office is suicide. Louisa Miranda says no cure for personality disorders, borderline personality disorders included. So I'm glad you mentioned that. For me personally, and in my field, you will hear all of us as professionals say there's no cure for personality disorders. Borderline personality can be stabilized with medication, therapy, support, love, affection, validation, reassurance, all of that, right? So borderline personality is kind of one of those disorders that I kind of carve out of that pie and I move it to the side, because you can heal that. You can work with that. Dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT, is helpful. Cognitive behavior therapy, trauma therapy is helpful. So that's borderline personality disorder over there. Now, all the other personality disorders, I mean, medication alone is not going to be successful. Treatment's not going to be successful alone. And for the majority of the time, with other personality disorders, BPD excluded, most of these individuals do not think that there's a problem. Take, for example, paranoid personality disorder. Do you think that they're going to go to a therapist? Probably not, because they're paranoid, right? So they're going to totally oust therapy. They're also going to totally oust medication. So, like, there's no treatment happening there. A narcissist thinks they're too great to be treated. A sociopath and a psychopath is too sadistic and manipulative to go to therapy. And some individuals with obsessive compulsive personality disorder or dependent personality disorder are so set in their ways, therapy is not going to help them, and they're going to have to be convinced. So Louisa Miranda, like, yes and no to your question. BPD aside, I don't think there's a cure for personality disorders. No. Okay, so John says life is hard, but it is so precious once you come through the pain. Yes. My God, John, are you a poet? Because I totally, like, you're saying all the right things tonight that I wanted to say, but I'm just too, like, up here tonight to say it. So thank you for that. I agree. Anytime we experience that pain, we come through what's called post-traumatic growth. And I think that's what you're referring to, John. It's that surreal period of time after the pain where you feel okay and you like where you are and you like the new you. It's wonderful. It really is. Fairy Girls says, oh, I don't know. Okay, so I'm lost in Fairy Girls. I'm lost in Fairy Girls comments, so I'm not going to comment on that because I don't want to mix that up. Thomas, and then we're going to wrap up, guys. Thomas says, I found that when I stopped rescuing and people pleasing and started implementing boundaries, people treated me as an enemy. Yes. And you know why, Thomas? Because you're setting a boundary, and people who don't want that boundary is going to push back because they want to do what they want to do. And also, our society has been developed in a way that says, people please, right? This is how you make friends. This is how you get good jobs. This is how you exceed, or succeed, I should say. And so, yeah, Thomas, like, they're going to turn on you because you're not following that normal, uninformed social view of communication in society. My attitude, Thomas, would basically be this: take me or leave me. It's your sanity. So, John, thank you. I see all the hands and the 100%. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Cherry Jubilee, for confirming the S word for me. You're welcome, Louisa Miranda. You're welcome. You're welcome, Cherry's Jubilee. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up here. Stay tuned for Sunday's video. I will be in the chat box. You guys are so wonderful. I say this every video, but it is true, and I totally mean it from my heart. You're welcome. Cherry's Jubilee says, love you tons for all you do. Thank you so much. So many hearts to you. Love you guys as well. Thank you very much for coming. Yes, Moss 100, you're welcome. Ricardo, you're welcome. You're welcome, Dragon Man Sasson. You're welcome, George. Thank you so much. And thank you for your contribution tonight. You guys are wonderful. Stay in a positive, strong mindset, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Have a good night. You're welcome, John. I saw that. Oh, you're welcome. Blessings to you. Have a good night.